This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from The Wren and the Holly Library and The Robin on the Oak Throne by K.A. Lindy, with mentions of ACOFAS and ACOSF. There's also mention of domestic violence. For full list, please see show notes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing The Robin on the Oak Throne, Book 2 in the Oak and Holly cycle by K.A. Lindy. Jessica Marie has things to say.
Do I? First thing to say is we called it. If you go back to our episode from the first book, book 1 from end of July, I think July 29th of 2024, we called this title for book 2. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I have a lot of opinions. The opinions might not be great. And I fear that because I might not have toxic positivity in this episode, we might earn ourselves another 1-star review because we're considered negative all the time. But if you've listened to our last few episodes and a lot of them, you would know that we're not always negative. And you know what? Maybe my opinions, it's a shame on me as a reader, right? How dare I have standards and expectations for a book I was so excited for. We had so much fun in book 1. There were monsters. There was fantasy. It was in New York. It was accurate New York. We were talking about the subway lines. And I was so excited to read this book too. And Laura, you explained it perfectly prior to recording that there is a large tonal shift from book 1 to book 2 where we are now.
Yes. I didn't actually get the name of that title, Jessica Marie, that we were talking about.
Kingdom of the Wicked.
There you go. See,
that trilogy.
that witchy food book. If you go back and you listen to one of those episodes, I'm not quite sure which one, maybe the third one.
I think it was the third one.
We say, Jessica, you and I both say that book just went from one thing to another, just like boom, bam, thank you, ma'am, craziness. So I absolutely think that happened here as well. There is so much sex in this book. And this is a conversation that we're going to have. We are not being little bitchy prudes here. No, we are not. That is not what this is. That is not what this is at all. We are all for spice. We are all for the fucking. But just the way that it was, first of all the time. And secondly, just very detailed, which again, awesome. But when it wasn't like that in the first book, I was not expecting it. And I was really thrown off. And I was also thinking to myself then, well, I guess I don't really know these characters then, because why is he talking like this? Why? Really? He was just like this the whole time? Okay, cool. I guess I'm getting to know the character. But again, this goes to what you are saying, Jessica. I had expectations and I shouldn't have, I guess, because the author can do what the author wants to do. And because this is their world. And I, the reader, just have to take it, right? And go to fan fiction if I'm unhappy.
And I know that's been a conversation that we've also had where it's is it on the reader? And again, when there is an established series out there, when the book doesn't meet your expectations, right? Is that fair to be upset at the author because again, I think it's just, again, a larger conversation. We know what has been written. And so when it doesn't meet those expectations, I mean, like you said, there's layers to this. There's layers to this. And I guess we'll go through it with the episode because it's going to sound like we're harping on it. Even from a tonal shift, even from the spice, even from the expectations, you have book one, and we say often on the podcast, like, about showing, not telling. So in book one, you have our two, main characters. We have Graves and Kearse. We have them. They have the banter. They have the sassiness with each other. You feel their chemistry in book one, and they have their, like, spicy times, and it's so fun, and you're giddy for them. And then you shift to book two, and the banter feels forced. So to let the reader, that, they still have chemistry, let's insert spice. And the spice feels like it borderline, and again, to each their own, but it almost doesn't feel like spice or even smut. It gets to the point where it feels like erotica at this point. And again, all reading is valid, but when you have one expectation from the first book of a series and you have that pendulum shift, you're like, wait a second. There's a lot of it. And it feels like you are forcing these spicy times to really drive home that there is chemistry between the characters. And that is the experience for me during my two reads of book two.
Yes, I also had two reads of book two, and I agree with you on all points, Jessica Marie. Here's what I have to say. I am not satisfied that this follows the pattern, and that just pisses me right off. Not for any reason. Like, that's just okay. There is this thing on social media that says, like, I'm angry that my husband didn't follow the fake schedule that I had in my head that I didn't tell him about. And
I haven't seen that.
And that is exactly like what I feel here. Just this irrational, like, well, damn it. It's not all there by chapter 5, so it doesn't exactly fit the pattern. And I stand by that. I don't feel that this satisfies the pattern enough, in that by chapter 5, we know that Kearse is having, like, nightmares and stuff, and she wants to go to the goblin market, but we don't know anything beyond that. And it's kind of just too fuzzy for me to say, like, yes, this fits the pattern. And that's just the complaint that I have, because, me.
But even at the end of the book, again, and this is like aligning with the pattern, usually you kind of understand the plot a little bit more. I mean, if anything, I feel like we understood the plot of this book. The plot is kind of set up at the end of book one. Not so much the beginning here, because we knew she had to leave Lorcan, she had to leave Graves, she had to go on an adventure to find the things that they're looking for in this book. I feel like the end of book one sets up book two better than the first 5 chapters here.
Sure. Yes. And what happens in these first 5 chapters then? This is a book two. And I'm going to say, like, again, it fits the travel book, but only in the beginning. Only in the beginning, because then we're in New York and we stay in New York and we're just traveling within New York. And I don't consider that, like, part of a travel book. But in this very beginning, we're in Versailles, and then we go to Dublin and we have adventures there. And then we go back to New York. Having been to Versailles and having left, like, my body weight in sweat there. It's so hot.
Oh, that was a rough summer for you. The last trip.
That is the second hottest temperature-wise that I've ever been in public, was on the train and in Versailles. No air circulation there. But here we have the Queen of the Nymphs and a bracelet that Kearse has to get so that she can use it to avoid eating the goblin fruit to get into the goblin market. Now, before we go any further, Jessica Marie, there are a lot of plot lines here. There are also a lot of characters here. Do you have clarity on either?
I don't. I don't, but I do have a list of names and we can work through them. There's a lot of names that are kind of being, here's the thing. I think there are reads where we feel like, okay, a person is named, they must be important. But here it is like all of the names are important. So there's a lot of different storylines that are being mapped out. And it was as if this book was an info dump of sorts so we can set up for future books. And there's just like, so I'll start. I'll go through some names. I'll give some brief things, but there's going to be more. And I think that's also where it starts to feel like, what is going on? Like, what is the main point? What are your takeaways? Because is everybody relevant to this story? And by the end of book 2, no, they're not relevant to this part of the story. So we have Kyr's, our FMC. We have Graves, our MMC. We have Graves' rival, who is the king of the Oak Throne, Lorcan, and he oversees the Druids in his district kingdom of Brooklyn. We have Lazarus, who is Graves' treasure hunter. We have Jason, who flashback to book 1, but is mentioned a lot here in book 2, is Kyr's kind of guardian after she was found when she was a kid, but then dated him and turns out to be her abuser. And spoiler, he's back and he never really died. Like, you know what we say here on ACOFAE, no head, not dead. Then you have Neve, who we weren't right here. She works for Lorcan and is actually the Robin to the Oak Throne, just like Kyr's is the Wren to the Holly Library. You have Ethan, who is one of Kyr's and Jen's best friends. They were just like the Power of 3 at the end of book 1. He is training with the Druid in Lorcan. Jen is also of the best friend of that triage. Corey, which is Ethan's ex-boyfriend, but kind of like they're just going through a break because Ethan's going through Druid training. You have Sorsha, who is dead, but is the wife of Lorcan, who had 2 of his kids, who Kyr's also carries Sorsha's magic within. And then you have Nate and Mora, who are also of spiritual things, who are engaged, but Mora currently can't have kids. Then you have a lot of political moving monsters in the sphere that I gave up keeping track of names, honestly, because I was like, this is too much. I went through a second read, which if you've been following the podcast is a rare feat for me. And I was still like, what? My brain is mush.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters. There's a lot of places. There's a lot of plot lines. There's a lot going on. I was telling Jessica Marie that I wholeheartedly believe that the content in this book could make up 2 seasons of television, 22 episodes each. Easily.
You could have, like, the way this is written out too, each of these characters, yeah, like you can have it in sequential order, or you can have, like, when you have the monster of the week, you have like, okay, well, next week, we're really going to follow this storyline, and they'll circle back together. I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a weird place where I just felt like it didn't feel coherent. Maybe that's not the word. It just felt like a murder board on paper with no organization.
Okay, so let's try to organize it a little bit. All right. Let's really get into it. This book is about 460, a little bit more than 460 pages in the hardcover that Jessica and I both have. Beautiful edition, by the way. Very lovely. Because there is so much going on, we're just gonna dip in and out. We're just gonna dip in and out of the story. We're gonna keep this light, and we're just gonna go with it. So we steal the bracelet from the queen, and Graves shows up and helps facilitate that. We love that. Unhand my wife. He says that a lot during this Paris Dublin section. There's a lot of my wife. There's a lot of kind of stuff getting told to us. Like, it's been 5 months, right? Kiers is the best thief. Jason was the best thief, but she was better than he was. Just these little things here. And in the beginning, because I was really focused on trying to suss the pattern out here. Because in the beginning, we have the troll guards too. We have the emphasis on the troll guards being like, I control these gates. Like, you need passes, that's even here in Versailles. So, we have that. We escape with the bracelet. I mean, we're just dipping in here. We escape with the bracelet. We go, to, where do we go? We go to Dublin.
Yeah, we have to go to the Goblin Market. But in order for Kiers to get access to the Goblin Market, she needs to exchange this bracelet with the goblins for them to give her like a goblin token to get into the Goblin Market.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now we're in the market. And then we're looking for another. Oh.
First, we have to go to Estelle's. Because remember, we are after the cauldron. The cauldron is the main thing. And Estelle is the High Warlock of Paris. They're going to like stay with her, right? They go in there and they're like, hey, we are going to, steal this cauldron, and Estelle catches her, and it's this whole thing. And one of the themes in this book that I picked up on is sacrifice. And that is kind of played up here when Estelle is very surprised. And of course, on ACOFAE, don't try to do riddles. ACOFAE podcast.
Did you try?
No, I didn't try. I just kept going. But sacrificial lamb, right? That's kind of what we kind of pull through this whole book is sacrifice and trust, and like what that kind of means, especially for Kiers. Because it's after, here's the thing. We don't get the cauldron, whatever. We leave Estelle's, and then it's here. We're in chapter 8. That's a thing. Like, it doesn't follow the pattern. We're in chapter 8 where we learn that there's going to be an auction for the cauldron in New York, and it's going to be a costume party. We're told that here. We have to go through so much to get to this like beacon of plot later in the book, which is the costume party in New York for the cauldron auction. It's just wild. But Jessica Marie, how did you feel about Graves earning back Kiers' trust throughout this book? Because I know one of our very dedicated listeners that we love very much did say that there was not enough groveling, and I do have to agree to that.
Yeah, there wasn't enough groveling, and also I was so like, why is he shocked that she's not just like, oh, okay, whatever you say. Yeah, there wasn't enough groveling, and then he would be so shocked, like, what do I need to do to earn her trust back? You lied. That's not just like an overnight fix. And I feel like that is, men never grovel enough, first off. And then even when she was like, okay, I forgive you or whatever, I guess he really does. Wherever she was of forgiving Graves, he should still be groveling and be like, oh my God, I am not worthy of your forgiveness. Because they both did. Both Lorcan and Graves really fucked her over, especially in book 1, in the lying and withholding information. Because then he still kind of does it. And then she even says, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's answering my questions. Do I push and ask more? He never willingly gives this much information.
Yeah. And he says, like, I am reevaluating my past. I'm thinking about things that were my fault. I am not going to lie, like no more lies between us, Kiers. My note says intense fingering in the limo. And there is, but we also have this other thread. There's just so much going on. This other thread of Kiers and her nightmares that turn out to be memories, that turn out to be blocked by like a psychological block and then like a spell. And then Kiers and her journey through therapy and memory work with Graves, trying to face what is ultimately the death of her parents and the revelation, spoilers here, that Jason is the one who put the spell on her to begin with. And he is even worse than we thought because he siphons the magic out of children to make himself strong. Asshole.
So he always knew that she was the one when he quote unquote found her.
Yep.
And drained her dry.
Yeah.
Until she had that release of power.
Yeah. Because he did it. He knew who she was. So asshole. So all of that happens too. And Jess, you're right. Graves is like really into that. She's like, I will help you. Like, we are going to work on this together. Because remember, he's a very powerful like warlock with like mind powers and stuff. So yeah. We have an interlude, and the interludes are interesting, but they're also just like, wow, more information. And the information here is that Estelle and the Queen are working with the curator, and the curator is Jason. And they're talking about what is going on. So that's, plot. But then, Jess, take us to Dublin, to the market.
Oh, I was going to ask you, with the interludes, do you feel that was just like they were added because as the author, we need to share this information with the reader, and I don't know how to dump this into a chapter, so we're just going to put an interlude right here?
I don't know. I feel like they're mid-season finales.
That's so funny. That's such a good way to, so like when the season's like about, like the mid-season is about to wrap up, it's that cliffhanger before we go on like holiday break.
Yes.
That's such a good example. Thank you for that. Yeah.
It's that
so
is how.
So you're left hanging like, okay, this is, something is a brewing.
What is this? Yeah.
And even though we have this whole other thing and they're like, hee-hee-ha-haing, it's snowing, like cheers with our hot cocoa. Flash to the interlude and then holiday break. Until we pick back up in January. Oh, I kind of like that.
Right. It works. It works. And it was something that I was thinking about because just like you said earlier in the episode, the organization, I was working very hard to keep this organized in my head, but my notes, you hear me like kind of like slow and kind of like really going over my notes when I'm talking is because they're very all over the place because there's just so much information. So it's like, I don't know what is important exactly. So I'm just going to like write down a lot and just kind of like see.
Which is also not effective because I forgot that I thought they went from like Dublin to Versailles back to Dublin. But no, they always started off in France. And then they went to Dublin because one of the things we find out with the Goblin Market is that there is only one and there are ports throughout the world. There's 7 total. And so there's one in, France, there's one in Dublin, there's one in New York, and there's some other ones. But we're all sharing the same market. And now, universe help me, I cannot remember. Oh, this is when we start like looking for like connecting that there's memory, the memory loss and the dreams are one and the same because Graves and her, there's like finger fucking going on. She falls asleep and she wakes up. She wakes Graves up and then Graves wakes up to her screaming about this loss. And she hadn't really remembered what her dreams were. She just knew that she wasn't sleeping well. And this is where we start digging deeper of those might not be nightmares. These might be memories. We need to figure this out. There's something to tap in there. And they all started when she started receiving her powers again at the end of book 1. And at the end of book 1, we know she started her travels to find out more about the myths and the lore of her people, of wisps, of like the cauldron of the items that they're looking for because she felt like she had to do it on her own.
Yes. And we also meet O'Sheen, who is the owner of the bookshop, which is the entrance to the Goblin Market. And we learn that he is the man, the myth, the legend from the O'Sheen and Neve myth. We have also met Neve, who was lying and is Lorcan's high priestess, Robin. And that really guts Jen because Jen was like really close to her. And this was like a lie between them. So yeah, Jess, this market, this market section is really interesting because a lot happens. You mentioned all of the entrances, and it's also like floors that's happening. So while they are trying to get to Rio, the bookkeeper, they go to his shop first, and it is all busted open. And then they go and they're looking for his other shop, and the goblins start chasing them. So then it's like this mad dash through the different cities of the goblin market, which I imagine to be very epic because they're described like Shanghai, and then we're in New York, we're in this, the Ye Olde Pilgrim, the pub, where we meet Val, right? Because there's a big bar fight, and Kier's is hurt. But there's just... Oh,
yeah, she's like got shanked kind of thing.
Yeah, she got shanked, in a bar fight. There's just so much going on. It's just really wild. Again, like episodes of TV here. They go to a safe house, she heals her. They go to his Rio's other office. What do we have? We learn here that Graves has been to this bookkeeper before, and what he paid is recorded here in the books, and that is brought up later. And Rio sends everybody to Shanghai to his brother to get more information on memory work for Kier's. Woo!
Yeah, because then the brother is the one with the newborn, and the wife was like, charge him for all of it. And Graves immediately says yes. And then that's when Kier's goes, that's weird. He always haggles. But that's when she knows that they're underselling with the value of what the item they need. So he goes, yep, that's it. That's exactly the cost. Yes, we will pay that.
Exactly that. They get it. They go back with Graves. They take it, right? They do it. And we have this memory that starts here of Kier's as a child with her father and her mother, essentially on the run, trying to keep her safe, on the run from the fake killer. And they go to Graves, and Kier's sees herself meeting Graves as a child, but she doesn't look like herself. She looks like her fey self. So that's why, like, there was no connection when she met Graves again as an adult, because he was like, well, I don't know. But through that memory, we see that her father had given Graves his knife. So there is a little piece of him there. And that Graves actually did very much help her parents and sent them to Killian Ryan, who was a rogue warlock who would help put a spell to hide the magic that Kier's would grow into. Hey, there's another interlude here.
I stopped track of the interlude. Which one was this?
This is the one where Oisin and Lorcan are working together, and Oisin tells Lorcan that they're going to be back in New York soon.
Oh.
And this is where we get the line that Oisin would do anything to get back into Fairy, even betray the Fae, the last Fae, which is the Wisp.
Because Oisin is part of a lore that we know, that he was human, of the human world, but then fell in love with somebody in Fairy, stayed in Fairy, but then fell off of his horse in the human, and he couldn't basically go back to either of the worlds and truly the Fairy world. That's Oisin.
Yeah, that's Oisin. And he's desperate, so he's going to do whatever he wants to do. Kier's wakes up, tells him the memory, says like, hey, Graves, you met me before. Hey. And this is also where he says, like, I am going to prove myself to you. I'm going to earn your trust back. I have never changed the direction of your memories. I will help you with your memories. I'm going to be very earnest. And this is also where Kier's is like, he's being very earnest. It's weird. Okay. But then we're back in Brooklyn. This is where we split. Neve goes back to Brooklyn, and Lorcan and Jen and Kier's go back with Graves to his house. This is where we meet Laz. And this is where we learn Jessica Marie, about the Frolic. Do you remember the Frolic? It's the elite theater show, and this is where we meet
Lyra.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it's Lyra.
Lyra, who is the daughter of one of like the vampire, like head vampire. And it's honestly just kind of like a dinner and a show. And she is the main attraction. But the whole premise around this is there's MonsterCon. We love a convention. There is MonsterCon in New York. But the thing with MonsterCon is that it's only for monsters and it's invite only and no humans allowed. This, that, the other thing. So they are trying to work around and find loopholes so that way we can get Kierce into MonsterCon to start doing her thieving. So how do we do that? We go to the Frolic and she's making nice with the people inside, including Lyra, who they bump into each other. And Lyra's like, oh my gosh, she's still my type. And Graves is getting really jealous. And Lyra is also flirting back with Kierce. And they're just kind of like going back and forth. And honestly, her and Lyra had more chemistry in what we've read between the two of them than I felt her and Graves had this entire book. Maybe that's just me. But eventually it's to lead Kierce into getting the invite from Lyra, because Lyra is a vampire. So, they start talking about MonsterCon and she's like, oh, my boyfriend's going to be there. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
No.
Oh, is that too soon?
My beau.
I know. I didn't want to say it. My beau is going to be there. I did not want to say it. So her beau is going to be there and, she's just trying to find a way in. So this is just kind of like laying the foundation for what might be able to set up in the future.
Yeah, because the other plot lines that are going on is that Ethan is essentially brainwashed by the druids during all of his training, and he gets in a big fight with Kierce. And he's like, Lorcan's not a bad guy. You're just being a bitch, essentially. And she's like, hey, whoa, fuck off. We're not going to talk again until you're cool.
Unless you're like, don't have you're brainwashed. Your druid brainwashed mind.
Yep. We have Lore Dumps. Lorcan's wife, right, was a wisp. He was a wisp. It's very important. They were all part of the power of 3, right? We have more lore drops that Killian, the rogue druid, drained Samsara, because that's another plot line. Samsara, the tree, drained it and killed the tree during the war. So that establishes Killian/Jason as a bad guy. We know this. We have Lorcan taking Kierce to the throne room and being like, this could all be yours. Come live with me. And her being like, fuck you, and the horse you rode in on.
Yeah, he definitely just presents it to her and she's like, yeah, no. And he goes, oh, but why not? You'll eventually come around because you have Sorcia's magic. Also, the sense of entitlement, right? Because he's like, oh, Sorcia was my soulmate. You have Sorcia's magic. Therefore, you are my soulmate and I am entitled to you.
Yep. The ends will justify the means. You'll come around eventually. That's important. The other plot line of Kierce and Graves going to the Covenant and working on like, hey, maybe this is brain damage, Kierce. Maybe we should run some tests, like magic and science together could fix this. So then we have all of that plot line.
They're basically doing magical EMDR, which is like so interesting, which I like the it's almost like the therapy part of it is the human part of it. And then the magic part of it, it's like not even human part of it. It's like psychology versus psychiatry and how you have to use the magic that could be your pill. That could be the pill that you kind of work through. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that.
But it's really something. And then we move to 5 points and we have the plot line of Nate asking for help with the incubus curse because Moira, his fiance, can't have children. And, we're going to ask Graves, and Graves says, well, the Cauldron could do it, so we should probably recruit Nate. We meet Schwartz, and he's going to be running security at the auction. And then we're gonna steal the Cauldron at the auction. So let's go to the auction. Well, we can't. We have to have a voracious fingering first.
Here's, because of course you do. How else do you start off a heist without voracious fingering? This, because there's so many storylines, I think of heist stories that we've read. We've read the May Corland. We've read Leigh Bardugo. Like, there are heist books. And then I'm thinking of like the Oceans books. This easily could have been like, okay, here's the heist part. And that could be like one book. And then the interludes could be like and I don't know if that's what this is. This doesn't feel entirely heist because there's so much going on.
Well, and there's two heists. There's this one, and then there's the one where they actually pull it off. This one.
And then if you want to talk about the beginning one, when she was, with the goblet bracelet. I mean, it's heist after heist in this book.
Yep. But also we need to point out that there's this kind of weird vibe happening between Kears and Graves in their dialogue to each other, and also like internally, because during this sexy car time where it's very sexy, we have Kears saying like she preferred this is her saying like she preferred eating women out than like sucking down cock, but here she was unable to imagine her life without this big giant wiener in her throat. And like, that's awesome. Like, I love a self-aware queen. But this little snippet is kind of repeated over and over and over again. But also it's kind of repeated that she really preferred women until she found this man. And he really preferred men until he found this woman. And it's just it's a weird kind of energy. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I know we talked about it off the podcast before a lot this week. And then I finally got there, and you were like, and that's only the first time that it's mentioned. And I thought it was just like a one and done. And then it just kept happening. And then I picked up on it again, even more so the second read.
Yeah. It's just this like strange kind of thing. All right. We're at the auction. We're meeting Lyra, as you said, Jess. The champagne is very floral. It's very floral in here. That's weird. That's not important. Lorcan is there. He's in his crown. Gregory Amberdash is there. Cool. All right.
Who's he? I can't remember.
He's the wraith that was her employer in the very beginning of the other book. Yeah. We have just as you said, the introduction of MonsterCon and like what MonsterCon is. We have Imani there, and she is blowing wish powder onto Graves and to Lorcan, and really kind of like, you know how I feel, she's my soulmate. And then we have this through line of like, Kears is actually Lorcan's soulmate. What does that mean for Graves and her relationship? Okay.
But that's also something that he's just like, woe is me. This kind of happened with me and Lorcan before, and that's kind of why he blames me for his sister's death, because this, that, the other thing. I thought I found somebody, but Sorsha was like soulmated to Lorcan, and now I feel like we're doing this all over again, and I'm not meant to have love in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. All of this, while Kears chases down Imani, because she's after the Cauldron, but the Cauldron turns out to be a decoy, and there is like a weird, like energy magical signature thing. And Kears immediately knows that it's not the real Cauldron, and she smells pine and lemon, which she has smelled in her memories before, which is going to be traced back to Jason, who is the curator, who is Killian. He's a man of many faces. Okay. We have an interlude. Jessica Marie, we have an interlude here between George and Graves. and just their relationship. And
this is one interlude, I will say, and this is a spoiler episode. This interlude is like how George became under Graves's employ since he was 18. He was just a little surfer dude, wanted to live life, surf his heart out, and like vibe, and and compete or whatever, because they met in Vegas or something random. And then it was just like one of those drive as fast as you can. And he did. And George stayed under Graves's employ. But at this point in the book, I was thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to be the curator. This would honestly kind of be a good twist because he's on the inside of everything. He is trusted implicitly. And then there's even the conversation and line that Keir says, who would know this about me? The only people who know are like X, Y, and Z. And I was like, she's not saying George. And George is like, does everything. And then even Graves at one point, he was like, I definitely hire people in my employ who have a multiple skill set. They're just not just like one single focus. So this is where I was like, oh my gosh, George is going to be the curator. And that would have been an interesting twist. He's not, where we've been discussing it, as you find out at the end of the book. But this is another thing that I was talking to you about before we started recording. I was like, what is the point? Because this just feels like we had to drop it in for something for book 3, when book 3 could have used this as a flashback in italics. So you have the history there. It's just, as somebody who edits and writes press releases, I would have had a lot of red lines and be like, let's use this for the project profile. Let's use this part for, the final notes in the final media kit for something. I just don't know.
A prequel. I think a lot of this could be a prequel and explained very easily.
And we received the prequel because there's a prequel to all of this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Red Tower. We're so sorry right now. We have a prequel. So for all we know, this stuff could be in there.
Then why would it be here?
Yes, but we haven't read the prequel yet. But I'm just saying that, where sometimes we're like, if the author writes it, you should read it. Well, if you're not everybody's reading the prequel. So I think ACOFAE is a perfect example where then you start ACOFAE and you're like, wait a second, especially if you have some of the original copies of ACOFAE, you're like, this is re-put into the beginning of ACOFAE.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. We have to talk about, of course, now after this mid-season finale, this interlude, we are back in the Goblin Market because this is where Kyrus has ended up after she has lost the decoy cauldron. She's lost Imani. This is where she is. She was chasing the cauldron, the decoy. The tracker stopped tracking in front of a door that turned out to be a Samsara tree cult. Very fun, very fun. We have the first inklings right away, that this tree cult is not good news, because Keir starts asking questions and the members are not answering the questions, and they are skating around and changing language. We're not monsters. It's just a lot of people with abilities, right? And Keir says, changing the words doesn't make it not happen. That's fucking weird what you're doing.
Yeah, because they're, like you said, they were dancing around and they're evading everything. And by rewording it, has Keir's that's my red flag. Yeah. And also, did you say Samsara? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Because I was going to be and also the Samsara tree, that's already and now I know the lore. So what the fuck is going on?
And then that guy is Kyrus? Kyrus, is that you? And she's no, I'm Shannon. Shannon here, fake name. And she ends up leaving there. The goblins are still, after her. Graves and Vale end up finding her. And we have this soulmate feeling, that Kyrus is really trying to wrestle with, because she's asking Graves about it. And she she kind of realizes that whenever she's around Lorcan, that she's kind of like enthralled with him a little bit. She kind of is, kind of persuaded to believe everything that she says, and that she's not easily able to pull away from him. And she's kind of wrestling with that. And she really wants to know, like, what is actually going on with the soulmate bond. And I feel like that's fair, because like I'm still unclear on exactly what is going on in regards to that. Like I know it's on page, but I don't know what it means.
Like, because I was going to say, like, we know she has her like Sorcerer's magic. So I think maybe we
does she though?
Oh,
because at the end of this, Lorcan has like her primary magic, and she's been gifted like secondary magic. And then because like the sacrificial like lamb thread that kind of runs through all of this, the other kind of theme that runs through all of this is like, what does Jason say? Like half of everything is the whole of nothing. So it's kind of like, and she says like, I'm half fae, I'm half wisp, I'm half human. I want to keep my humanity. I still want to be fae. This ownership of like, it's okay to learn about the different parts of yourself and to like strengthen the different parts of yourself, and to love all parts of yourself.
I think you're onto something with the ownership, right? Because she even talks about ownership and acceptance of yourself, because at the beginning of the book, she talks about like, even though she's half fae, she uses her glamour to stay in human form because that is who she's comfortable with. That is what she's comfortable with. That is who she knows as herself. But also even when we're going back and forth about like the binding and the ceremony with Lorcan, she's like, this is not my consent. I'm being forced to do this. This is not my decision. Of course, like she didn't have a choice before me. I should have a choice now to take ownership of her body in that sense and her mind. And that's why it was such a big deal when like, I know there's a lot of like third base action going on between her and Graves, but then there's a point where they finally like go all the way and they're finally fucking, and she lets down her barrier and is giving him consent to like read her thoughts in her mind.
Yes. And that's why when Lorcan suggests that Graves is turning her into mush, that she's like, but, and that's why it like kind of like hurts her so much, especially because here we're in chapter 43. Walter has joined our group. Nate has joined our group. Laz is here. Vale is here. We're a big group of about 11 people that are working to steal the cauldron. But first we're doing memory work. And during this section here in 43, we're bleeding from our eyes and we're bleeding from our nose. And that's very intense. And this is the example that Kears uses when she's like, no, Graves was protecting me. He didn't push me. He said to stop. He took care of me. And she uses this example. And Lorcan is like, yeah, but like, he was doing all of that to you. Like he facilitated all of this to make himself look better. And he's turning you into mush. Don't you realize you're turning into mush? Or you couldn't realize you're turning into mush because that's not how it works. Which is a scary kind of through line throughout this, that kind of really rears its head here, which is interesting. Also kind of interesting is the therapy session where the therapist is basically like, hey, face your shit. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I loved how we were approaching the EMDR because there are layers to it if you've never done it. I've had like 2 sessions and then they kind of pieced off. Honestly, Graves was more helpful in those sessions than the actual therapist.
Yeah, she was like, oh, I'm going to do a spell on you. Oh, you have, 2 blocks. You have to face your shit emotionally. I'm not going to tell you how to do that, though.
It's the how, because the whole thing with EMDR is you have to face it and you have to go through it. And then you're like, now what do I do with this unlearning and unblocking of the suppressed memory?
She's like, figure it out.
Deuces.
Bye. So that's that essentially. We have engagement parties. That's very fun.
Nate, Mora, they're like, you get a +1 if you want to bring your hunky boyfriend. And they're like, he's never going to show up. And then who shows up? Surprise.
Lorcan is also there. And this is where he's like, ends justify the means. He's like, you are hell-bent on making me a villain. You are.
Well, you're acting like a fucking stalker.
You're acting like a creep, dude. Like, come on. Just as you said, Graves is at the party and he kind of like charms everybody, which is interesting because Kiers is like, oh, damn, he's like my private behind doors boyfriend. I don't know how he's going to act in public. But he
isn't that
it.
always the case when you have I don't even want to say golden retriever, black cat, but when you have like the Doberman or German Shepherd boyfriend, when they're like, they're mean to everybody but you. And she's like, but there's other people around.
It's like, how's he gonna behave? He behaves fine. He's fine. And then, what's happening? Just as you said, the plot line with, Lyra, she's gonna take Kiers to the con. She's going to sneak her in with her dance theater troupe. We love that. We have an interlude with Neve and Lorcan and Sorsha. We kind of learn about their past together and how Neve is trans and how she was in love with Sorsha before Lorcan. It was this whole thing.
And Sorsha was in love with Neve also. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like this unrequited thing. So it was just Sorsha was like, oh, well, I'm a soulmate. So that's my life now.
Yeah. And we also have more lore too, because there is training with the three of them, the power of three, and Ethan fucking like siphons out, Kiers' magic, and she wakes up in Lorcan's bed, and it's this whole thing, and she feels this like draw or whatever. But Graves picks her up, and she says, I'll choose you forever, Graves. I'll choose you. But then Graves tells Kiers a little bit about Emily and like what happened with Emily, and he's like, yeah, no, I killed that bitch. And we'll go into more of it later. But again, just as you said, Kiers is just like, oh, he's telling me things. I didn't have to really like dig for that. He's just telling me, cool. That's trust. All right.
Which
cool.
Is it?
Is it? Not sure. We have decoy box. Decoy box is open. Cool. The plan is starting to come together for MonsterCon. Jen is going to handle the security. Bang, bang. We love that.
I can't take MonsterCon seriously.
I can't either. It sounds like something else.
Well, and then like there's a convention and it's called Monster Mania, and it's like a horror convention. They have all the scary movies. You can meet all of the talent from the movies. They have different comics based off the movies and vice versa. They have panels. So I'm thinking horror movies, and I feel like the way it's supposed to be portrayed here, it's like business monster meeting for the elite. Like that's how it's kind of being painted, but I just can't take it seriously. Especially because then they're like, and it's happening at the Jobbits.
Yeah, and it's happening at the Jobbits. It's like, oh, okay.
Shout out BookCon, see you at Jobbits.
We see you. Before we kind of like go into the kind of downward slide of this, when like Kingston arrives and everything, we have more like planning going on for this heist that is going to take up the rest of the book. But again, the spice level in here is intense. There's not a lot of peeing in between things. There's a lot of painting with cum, and that's a whole thing. But there's also this section where Kiers wakes up with Graves just like going to town, having breakfast. We love that. But again, it is this,
No, we haven't gotten there yet. Sorry.
No. It's like, I usually like girls better. You know, I never thought that it would be like this. And then Graves says, like, you know, I would keep you like filled with cum every day forever. And he's like just breast to belly, smearing it all over her. It is just this scene that is, I played it for editor Sam, who was afraid. And that's
why I'm laughing off camera.
He was afraid. He looked at me like, I don't want to do that. No, that's not why we're here. We're here so
communication is key. If you're listening and this is your thing, good for you. We're not shaming. There's communication going on. There's
communication here. What I'm saying is that this scene in particular made me feel like I did not know these characters. Because there are some other instances where Graves like smacks her pussy or like smacks her ass very hard and like pulls apart her cheeks and stuff that I was like, okay, I mean, fine, whatever. But this one in particular, I was just like, who are you?
Yeah, wasn't there one where like after she came and there was like the intense fingering and then he slapped her clit and then he goes, glad to know this is still mine.
That pretty pussy is still, yeah. It was just like, really? I just felt like I didn't know who he was. And there is something to be said for a buttoned up English gentleman, Irish English gentleman in the streets. Yeah. Like freak in the sheets. Yeah. Freak in the sheets. Like, I get it. I understand that. I was just very surprised. I was very surprised by the level and just by the words, I guess.
And I think this goes back into the tonal shift. That I think it's just like we signed up for one level of spice, which is what we got in book one, and we loved it. And it was like so much story. And this felt like not that same level of what we signed up for. Just like I have actively chosen, and this is just me, I'm not really a dark romance girl. I have tried multiple times, has not been my thing personally. So I have chosen to not read Den of Vipers. I know a lot of people read it for either because they're dark romance people or they wanted the shock value because people were talking about it. I have, based on the very minimal information that I've read, and I think it's reverse harem, and I love a reverse harem. I'm not knocking on that. But I did not sign up for Den of Vipers, which is where I feel the direction of this book went at one point when guns are involved.
Well, very soon, Jess, very soon. Let's get there. Okay. So, we have the plot. Lyra is in this plot because the curator has a picture that her dad took and she's pissed about that and she wants it back. Okay. Team Holly, let's make t-shirts. All right. Jen takes down security and she is stabbed. Okay. We're there. Gregory Amberdash is working for the Men of Valor. Join us. Be our voice. That's scary. Kiers can feel Lorcan. Ethan, you're so predictable. Kiers, why don't you give Lorcan a chance? Okay, dude. There's a troll revolt happening. They have joined the Men of Valor. Okay, interesting. There's like kissing going on. There's a lot. There's a lot. Okay. Kingston arrives, which kind of throws a whole chink into all of the armor. And Graves tells Kiers about what happened with Emily and how he was trying to siphon like the bond, the soulmate bond out of Emily and how it eventually kills her. And Kiers responds with just a wild, like, I love you. And Graves responds by fucking her with a gun. Jess, thoughts, feelings?
I had to walk away. I actually, on top of walking away, before I walked away, I rewound it because I must have read that wrong. And I also, and thank you again, Red Tower, for the physical copies. I've also read this through audio. And I rewound it. I reread it. I didn't know what I read. And then I went back to the warnings went back to the warnings because that's me. That's me as a reader. That is my responsibility to be checking these warnings. Check the warnings. And it's just like a very broad, general, same thing we probably would have seen at the beginning of Apprentice to the Villain. You know, like a very blanketed statement, or even like Shield of Sparrows. Very top of the line. So I was like, okay, cool. Not a me thing. Was not expecting action with the gun. Was not. And I texted Laura and I had to walk away. You held out on me. You told me there were other things, and I very much feel, and I go, and I love you for it. And I told her that. It was very much I had to deal with this. And you do too. Cause what was you have yet to tell me your reaction. And I've been like waiting for this episode to record, to hear what your thoughts were.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on.
Did you have editor Sam listen to that part?
No, because I was too surprised. Because it was just, are we suddenly in a mafia romance? I mean, I guess maybe.
But I've read mafia romances and that has not happened.
I just was so surprised. And then it just kept going. And they kept talking about it. And she's like, oh, you're so turned on with that like slippery, wet, fold pussy with the gun. Was it the gun? And he drags it. That's the thing. Like, he puts it there. He uses it. He uses it because at first he had the pistol. I'm hoping we're going to assume the safety's on. We're going to assume.
For anybody knows firearms. But two, it was like they were laying on it, or however they were on the couch, and it was like a, whoops, forgot this was here. But it wasn't just that. You know, it just was like, oh, we're not just putting it aside because we got caught up in the heat of the moment and we're on the couch. That is our new adult toy for the moment.
Yeah. And again, I just felt like I didn't know these characters because in what world, but I guess that they're freaks, and that's wonderful for them. It was just surprising for the reader, spending all of this time with them and like kind of learning that they're a little freaky. And then for this, you're just like, wow. And it's also, it's not, let's see. This gun sex is not after like a life or death kind of scenario. It's like a, I love you. Like, I'm like, and I don't know why I thought she had said I love you at some point already. She does. Oh, not already. This is the first time. So that's the thing. This is the first time. And in my head, I was like, has she just been thinking it this whole time? But that's a very interesting response to the first time you're hearing, I love you. I love you too. Bang. Literally. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. Yeah, I know. We gotta move on. We're almost done here. We gotta move on. All right. Graves gives Kears her father's knife. We like that. We work through more memory that she sees. Kears breaks through one of the memory blocks and sees her mother and father die and hears the Fae killer and another woman talking and realizing that there isn't any magic because the spell hid Kears. But then Kears says that as soon as she left the apartment, she forgot everything about her parents, her life, her magic, and she ran into Jason a little bit later when she was 6 years old. And from then on, she was with Jason. Okay. Heist. We are heisting. Now, part of the joy of a heist is that you don't know how it works. So let's just keep that alive here. The heist is successful. And the cauldron is taken by Graves and Laz and everybody. Excellent. However, Kears is captured and chloroformed and is taken to the curator. Okay. There's an interlude in between there, and that interlude is about CIA, vampires, magic, all of this fun stuff. Okay. here's where the thread in the beginning of the book of magic and science ties a little bow, because out walks Jason, who was paralyzed when Kears tried to kill him, and through a combination of magic and science is able to walk again with the help of a cane. So there's that. And he is revealed here. Okay, so the reveal is like tap, tap, tap. It's very dramatic. Tap, tap, tap. Shannon was her mother. This is Kears. I assume it's a nice accent. But out comes the curator, out comes Killian, out comes Jason. And this is the big thing that happens. Jason starts like kind of screaming at her, like, where's the cauldron? Like, what is going on? And Kears kind of milks him for a little bit of information. Jason realizes that the spell he cast on her is broken. And Kears is like, why did you do all of this? And this is where he drops the line, like, you are just a half-breed. Half of everything is a whole of nothing. I saved all of these kids. And this is where we learn that Jason like siphons the magic out of all of these kids to make himself more powerful. And, if not for me, then you would be dead. Who would you be? Here's the other one. Who would follow you, Kears? That's not going to be important. I don't know how. That's not going to be important. And this is also where Jason is like, hey, though, you know who the fake killer is. I know who the fake killer is. We both know him. I'm not going to tell you who it is, though. I'm just going to fuck off because you phased out of iron, Kears. And that's scary. And I don't want anything to do with that. Not at all. But this is where that creepy soulmate bond is starting to rear its head, because Kears is like calling out for Lorcan, like, save me, save me, save me, save me. And then she's also like, Graves, save me, save me, save me, save me. And Lorcan ends up saving her.
But I think it's only because it's like she understood that connection at the time with Graves was probably not going to be there. So she was like on her survival instincts. Well, who told me they were always going to be there for me? It was Lorcan. So let me dig up into the depths of my soul an inkling of the attraction that I found with him and tether myself to that. And hopefully he'll come a running, because which is also interesting, because I remember in the first book, I am still like, and I've gotten so much better about, not relying, as a hyper independent person, when you read, I don't want to be hyper independent in my reading all the time. And the last book, I was like, wait, Graves isn't going to save her. She's going to save herself. And Graves is like, I was going to come and save you, but you got this. That's my girl. And then you have the flip side of it, where it's like she has shared her vulnerability, and now she has to rely on anybody. So she's pulling out on all her strings, and he does come, and Lorcan does come, and he does save her. And Graves isn't that far behind. He was already en route.
Yeah, he was already there. But this is where we have, hey, we're in the throne room, right? Neve said, sleep, sleep. And she wakes up in the throne room. This is where Lorcan is like, Graves hurt you. I'm going to gaslight you. Graves hurt you. He is manipulating your mind. He can't help it. It's just who he is. He's fucking with your memory. Is this really your choice? It's not really a choice. You have a broken mind. I need to protect you. You're not well. You're sick. You're sick. He didn't train you. He broke our connection when we were in our soulmate thrall. Like, he's shredding your mind, not you. I have to protect you. He's like hyping himself up, right? Then he's like, I know, we will be bound tonight. And he even says, like, you want to make me your villain? I'll be your fucking villain. He does a Ben Barnes.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there was no, fine, make me your villain. I was like, okay, bar for bar, really? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. It's wild. It's wild. So Neve is there because she's a high priestess, and, Lorcan is still spewing his shit. Like, he's destroying you. And Neve is like, the ceremony is sacred. It needs to be voluntary. Like, should we really do this? As she's like binding Kears, and she's screaming and crying and saying no. And Neve is like, should we really do this? Yes, bitch. Like, come on, stand up. She does eventually and becomes Druid Queen, and we love that. But Neef lets this go on like a little bit too long before she says anything.
Yeah, in an uncomfortable way. She should definitely have, because she's also befriended. She's also befriended Kierce at this point. She's been with them through the journey, through Dublin, through Versailles, with Jen. And she had even made a point to not Lorcan, she made a point to Graves, and Graves is like, you're here from Lorcan. And they all felt betrayed. And they're like, no, but like, I really became your friend, and that's where I started drawing the line with everything. So now the fact that it did go on for so long, and then eventually she realized, wait, I need to fight against the Oak Throne curse, because the only person who could sit on the Oak Throne is who owns it, which is Lorcan. But she like goes against the Oak Throne magic to sit her ass on that seat, to be like, fuck y'all, I'm Queen Druid.
Yeah, and like that's wonderful and all, but the ceremony is successfully completed, and Lorcan has complete control over Kierce's magic. Like all of it. And even like Sorsha would be ashamed of you. Okay, he still fucking did it. Like he doesn't care.
Yeah, and again, like the ends justify the means. So he's not seeing he's not seeing anything that is wrong, and then two, it's also like, but we got here, and I got what I needed, so it's fine for me.
And Lorcan and Kierce are also connected. Like if Lorcan dies, then Kierce dies, but Lorcan will be reincarnated because he's part of the Holly Oak cycle. Kierce won't be. She'll just die. So when Graves shows up with the spear to like save the day, right? He goes to try to kill Lorcan, but he can't. It's too late. So there we go. Graves takes everybody, Jen, Ethan, everybody. We all go. We leave. Lorcan is exiled. And we learn that Jen and Ethan were talking shit. They were talking shit about Kierce and being like, I don't think she's safe. This isn't right. And Ethan took that information and told Lorcan, and that's what like kind of kicked off all of this mess. But then Ethan did not like what Lorcan was doing, and Ethan ran to Graves and was like, hey, I did this and we need to fix it.
But again, too late. Everything is just too late.
Yep, too late. Okay, so we go home. We're in the backslide of this. We go home. We confess everything to Graves about Jason, about, might not being the only wisp, about how Lorcan tried to gaslight me about the manipulation. And Graves is like, hey, you know what? Like, I did try. But then I realized that when I didn't use my magic on you and I kind of like earned everything, the quote is like, you turned to me like a flower in bloom. And so Graves found it more rewarding to earn the trust of Kierce and everyone around her naturally than through mind manipulation. And that's why this has now turned into like an 11-person, less than that soon, found family. But now we have to use the cauldron. Let's use the cauldron. Fun stuff.
I know I should have taken notes about what everybody's cauldron wish was, but I think I was just like so mentally out of it. Like, of course, we have Nora and Nate. They want to be able to have children. That was theirs. They get it. Like, everything was very instantaneous with that cauldron.
Yep, they get it. Kierce takes a cauldron, and the cauldron says, like, this was done to you. You want it gone. However, it was done correctly. It's a part of you. There is another way. And Kierce like starts screaming. And now she possesses new powers, not her old ones. Okay, cool. We also have the $23 million that everybody's going to get, because when they stole the cauldron, they also stole everything of Jason's. That is a fun little fact that I liked. And Jen is like, you're going to give me 23 million? And Graves is like, everybody gets that.
He said 23. I was like, oh, we're getting 23 million. They were like, each. Then everybody was like, oh, okay.
We love it. So now we're almost done. We're almost at the wedding. But first, Graves tells Kears what he used the cauldron for, and he asked the cauldron to return his druid magic, which he gave away in the goblin market 70 years ago when he tracked down information about the sword or spear or whatever. The sword. No, it was a sword. And Rio has it in his book, and they won't give it back. The cauldron won't give it back. It's just, it is what it is. Okay. The wedding, Jessica Marie, is interrupted by the men of valor and trolls, and we have a death. Who dies?
Nate dies.
The groom.
I remember
right
the
after
groom.
he was married.
And after she was pregnant, and she's like, "You have to be alive. You have to be there for our baby." I'm very surprised he stayed dead.
Dead as absolute fuck. Ripped his throat out. This is Nuvali. She is on the. Now she has a nomination to be on the council for the Men of Valor. That was wild shit. It happened so fast, but this is again, the trolls are coming. Like it is what it is. Now we have a monster war coming. This is the end. Nate is dead.
That's how it wraps. I guess like, oh, I guess another monster war is upon us.
Well, there's an interlude. Again, this would be our season finale. Our second season finale, our interlude here. Lorcan is in a safe house with the rest of the druids that were still loyal to him. They're talking about civil war. They're talking about how, things are not good with a new person on the throne during all of this time of change. It's like really crazy. And Lorcan is also reminiscing on his time as a friend or more than brothers with, we know what that means, with Graves, and how then we'll be brothers in
they
truth.
Were roommates.
And they were roommates. And he remembers how Emily was changed and then she died and had a slushy mind, and that was Graves's fault. But then O'Sheen and Lorcan start talking and they say, it's time, my boys, to go after the stone. And that is how this book ends. It's done.
It was the longest 2 reads of my life.
She's thick. Now, I will say that these beautiful hardcovers that we got are lovely. There's lovely in-page art, and there's they're gorgeous.
So gorgeous. Pretty with or without the cover, and the edges are pretty, and even the photo inside the cover, you see it is Kierce in the Goblin Market, and it was very reminiscent of when we discussed shadow hunters, right? In the shadow market. So that part was always fun. I don't know. I don't know if I'd read it again to prepare for book 3. Do I want to read book 3? I don't know. Where are you at with all of this?
I want this as a TV show. Here's the thing. I recently started a very casual rewatch of the 2002 sci-fi original series Eureka. And
you love that show.
I love Eureka. I was watching the pilot and I was like, God, this all holds up. I know it gets corny. I know it gets silly, but this first season, it's fun. It's good. I mean, that's Papa Pope. That's Olivia's daddy. Are you kidding? The talent. So I was watching that and I was like, this is a lost format because sci-fi doesn't really do this anymore. Obviously, with streaming now, they don't make content like that anymore. But that quality content of Warehouse 13 and Eureka during that time, the librarians, that I think would have been the perfect format for this. Just enough special effects, just enough, but enough practical, enough using the location, enough just chewing scenery and heisty kind of stuff. I really think that this would have flourished there. And I again, a little hesitant to read the next kind of installment of this, but I would watch it.
That's you.
I really would.
Breaking it down into a seasoned show with 22 episodes, and you mentioning how the interludes, how that would wrap up those different breaks. It's like the Vampire Diaries. I won't read The Vampire. I know it was based on, I'm sure it's great, but watching it for me is so palatable. I wouldn't go back and read this. But if it was on screen, it would definitely be fun. Because this would have been, I mean, take the spice out. We could have had a lot of fade to black scenes, cut to commercial scenes. This would have been a CW show. Peak CW
It'd be
show.
great. Yeah. This would have been absolutely excellent. Still could be if they made TV like they used to, but they don't. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, this is a very visual story to me, and I want to see it visually. I don't know if I want to, because also, the TBR is endless. So the time and the effort that it takes to sit down and like physically read a book, or the mental energy that it takes to listen to a book and read it that way through audio, is something that, like, do you get that time back? No. So where do I spend, again, 2025, we're searching for the joy. We are surviving, especially now. We're recording this in July. No, it's in June. Oh my God, we're in June. So it's a weird time. So if I'm looking for the joy everywhere, then maybe I wait and see what happens with this story and try to find my joy somewhere else, because I need to explore everything. And part of exploring everything to find your joy is that not everything will hit, and that is okay.
Thanks for making me feel better about that, because I came in really hot at the beginning of this. So thank you for helping me talk through it. And also, what are we signing up for those next books? Because this necessarily wasn't what was initially signed up for. But that being said, I still recommend the first book. The first book is so fun. So I feel like if you are listening to this, and whether you are trying to say, do I want to spend my time reading, still read the first book and decide for yourself if this is something you want to go forward with. It's just understand that it is going to be a tonal shift. And if that is something you are looking for, that's great. This is going to totally be up your alley. But that being said, feel free to follow us on Instagram or on ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.